Okay. Welcome back to the Passionate Pioneer podcast. And this is series two, episode 25. And today I am live with ALARA SAGE, also known as the Oracle of Wealth. Hi, Laura.
Hello, Beth. Happy to be here.
I know. Finally, we've managed to
Yes.
meet. We've been trying this, myself and Alara, for a number of weeks now, but our schedules keep clashing. And this is, and I'm really glad she was able to pop on now because this is the last episode, live episode before we take a break for Christmas. So you know me, I'm Beth. And I'm also known as the Passionate Pioneer, and my motto is Empowered Women, Empowered Lives. So let's get started. Let me welcome Alara. So, from rags to riches to rebirth, Alara, the Oracle of Wealth, guides visionary leaders to transform their energetic blocks into breakthrough wealth. With her revolutionary wealth flow framework, she bridges ancient wisdom, which I love, with modern business strategies, empowering conscious entrepreneurs to harness their creative life force energy. Alara's journey from six-figure success to total loss and profound rebirth uniquely positions her to guide leaders who are ready to merge their spiritual gifts with business mastery. And she is also the host of the Wealth Embodied podcast, where she reveals how today's conscious leaders can build legacy enterprises that transform both business and humanity. Wow. I love reading. I tell you what, I just love reading people's bios, right? It's incredible. When you hear your own accomplishments read back to you, it's amazing, Alara, right?
It always feels so good, doesn't it?
It's empowering, isn't it?
It is, yes.
It's totally empowering. So, okay, let's get started with the first question, which is a bit of a tongue in cheek, really. So it's like it's a question I ask. The first question I ask all my guests, which what ignited your passion for your industry? You know, was it a lifelong dream, or did it emerge through a journey of discovery?
It was definitely a journey through discovery. Yes, without a doubt.
So can you tell us how it all started? Go back to the beginning. Tell us a story, Alara.
Yes. Well, interestingly enough, I've had these gifts that I have since I was a child. And I actually had visions of myself doing what I'm doing just now. And this was at an age before I really understood what it meant. And then, I was all over the place. I actually left the country and traveled the world and taught scuba diving for many years. So took a little road side trip there. But, then I came back in and started to really harness the gifts that I had and started to work with people and started to work with, their spiritual journey and then moving into business. And then I had this, experience that happened to me where I had my six-figure business, I had money, I was successful, and then all of my money was stolen. And
Right.
in in that moment, of course there was this initial fear, right? And I had actually been told that my money was going to be stolen by my higher self. So I knew it was going to happen. I didn't know when, I didn't know how. It still hit me like a wall, a ton of bricks,
Right.
um, ironically enough. And I had that initial wave of fear. And then I said, you know what? Like I've really had this knack for creating whatever I desire since I was little. People used to always say to me, like, how do you do that? And for the longest time, I didn't know. I was like, what are you even talking about? Right? Like, is that what for everybody? And then I learned, my techniques and was teaching my techniques. And so I was just like, I've got this. And my, really strong arrogance was just there. And arrogance, confidence is there. Where's the difference between those two? Um, and I set
Well, it's a
about,
little bit of the ego, isn't it? A little bit of
yes,
the ego, but we need that. You need that
absolutely.
in life, let alone to
Absolutely.
be a business owner, right? You need a little bit
Yes.
of both.
No, you do. Otherwise, you'll never get anywhere.
Exactly.
Uh, and so, yeah, I just set about like recreating it, right? And that's not what happened. Instead of recreating my wealth, my business collapsed and I went into the red. And then I went into debt for the first time in my entire life. And I had to pause. There was a point through which I continued to keep doing this until I was like, wait a second, something isn't right here. And I went into another dark night of the soul. That wasn't my first, where you really are faced with aspects of yourself that need to be seen and need to
Yeah.
be healed.
Yeah.
And those aspects of myself were really my relationship to money. When my business was successful, I had money. My relationship wasn't any better. It's just that having the money was giving me the buffer to not really look at my relationship, how I really felt
Right.
about money. And so my business was on this shaky foundation. And because this is my life's work, I was not going to be allowed to carry that forward. And I wasn't listening. I wasn't listening to the messages I was getting because I didn't want to look at it, right? I'm just,
I'll just
and
keep ignoring it, and it
I'll
just
just keep
keeps
ignoring
coming
it. It'll
back.
go away, right? It didn't. And so I went through this process of recognizing the limiting beliefs I had around money, around wealth, around luxury, around personal power, security, freedom, and was able to transform those limiting beliefs and then, really create my business from this, what I call loving relationship to money and what I also term embodied wealth.
Well, it's energy, isn't it? This is what we do. Everything is energy. And we tend to see money as this, many of us, as it's unattainable, it's not available for me, and there's more than enough available for everybody. It's just energy. You just got to match your vibration to that energy, and it sounds really complicated, but it's not. But it is a process, isn't it, Alara? You've got to raise your vibration, and it's a thing that we have to do every single day. We have to choose that higher vibration, and follow the joy. That's what I always say, right? Follow the joy. So how did you? Um, so tell us the next steps then. So you had this big disaster, which I would call a major spiritual turning point,
Mhm.
and also the dark nights of the soul, of which
Mhm.
there are many, because we've got many spiritual turning points. Things happen for a reason. There's no such thing as coincidence. Things happen for us if we learn the lesson and we understand why, instead of happening to us, right? They happen for us, for the better of us, to put us in the direction we're supposed to go, right? So tell us how you managed to. What was the next step? Let's just say that. What was the next step for you?
Yeah, I mean, after, transmuting those beliefs, it was just really about, I was in a very different space. I was really embodied in that wealth frequency. And so my creative life force energy was completely lit up and still is. And then it was just simply creating from that aliveness, creating from how that energy wants to flow through me, what those programs were, what those offers were, who those clients were. And as you said, following that joy, I call it aliveness, and
Nice.
creating my business from that space and truly living, from that space of that internal guidance, that intuition, that gut instinct, that inner authority above anything and everything else.
Right. So when you were on this journey of discovery, right? For want of a better word, it is a journey of discovery. That's what life is about, right?
Hmm.
Who were your guiding lights? Who was there for you to role models, support, a network? Because they are crucial on your journey. So who were those people for you?
Yes, there was and still is a business mentor. His name is Scott Olford. He had a similar, different, but similar story where he went $1 million into the red and
Mm,
had to face a lot of what that really meant for him. And same thing, then, really created a multi-million-dollar empire. And just hearing that story was he came into my life like 3, 4 months after that happened,
no, no
So
coincidence.
no coincidence. Just hearing that story and recognizing, yeah, this is, I believe everything happens for us, but it is really wonderful to have those reflections.
And anybody else? Who else? Because when you're transitioning, you've lost all this money. Most people would be probably more afraid for you than you were. You were expecting this to happen. You said, "I knew this was going to happen," because you knew it was going to be another another level, another moving into a different direction. So, who were did you have any like naysayers or people that were doubting you when you lost this
Not
money?
so much. No, I mean, I'm a very, uh, I learn through myself. I learn through higher self. And I've just always been that way. And so, for the longest time, and I still don't really have like heroes and things like that, just because I see people's experiences. Okay, that's their experience. Wonderful. I rarely use the reflection of others. So, like that experience with that one mentor was actually unusual for me. Not to say I haven't used mentors, but I tend to just really focus on this is my experience. What am I here to gain from that? I didn't really have any naysayers except, the voices in my head.
Right. Well, that's the biggest one, right? So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that self-doubt and fear along the way and along your journey. And how did you overcome those challenges of what's going on?
Yeah, so again, initially, I had this just I've got this, right? And then it wasn't working. And no, I've still got this. And then it wasn't working. And then it started to really sink in. Oh man, wait a second. I don't have this, right? I don't have this.
Right.
And really feeling all of a sudden this energy of inadequacy, right? Of maybe I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe I can't do this. Maybe I'll never recover from this. And there was a period of time where I was really trying to grasp things outside of myself from that point. Maybe if I learn more, I'm a lifelong learner. I love to learn. But that can also be a way that we try to cope with things, right? If we just gain more knowledge, if we just gain more content, right, that'll solve the problem.
Yeah.
And of course it didn't, because this feeling of insecurity and inadequacy was inside. And so I had to really look at that and resolve those internal dialogues where those energies were coming from, which, they were coming from ancestral lineages, they were coming past life, coming from this life, earlier experiences in this life. And resolving that first, and then that feeling of that trying to grasp left. And I had this sense of peace and this spaciousness for, again, that internal dialogue between me and my intuition. Because that fear, that feeling of inadequacy, it starts to bring us up into our heads, right? Rather than really allowing us to hear those internal whispers of our own guidance.
It's called surrender, isn't it? Surrender. Just surrender and let go and lead with the heart. The saying "let go, let God" really does, it does mean, right? I mean, God, source, creator, universe, whatever you want to call it. But it really is that letting go and surrendering and understanding that it's all happening for a bigger reason. And
Yeah,
that's quite difficult to do, isn't it? That's difficult for humans to do because we're mostly in our ego and then we go into victimhood. Right. So it's all, oh, this is happening to me. This is happening to me. This always happens to me, but it doesn't happen to other people. And right. All of these things happen for a reason, is my beliefs. And I'm a spiritual life coach, and you're deep into spirituality, and it's all about understanding ourselves and connecting to that higher source, isn't it? And learning to let go and trust. Would you agree?
absolutely. Yeah. And, surrender is always, I find, a concept that people don't grasp it very easily because it's not about not doing. It's not, you're not giving up. You're surrendering the attempt to control, right? You're
Right.
surrendering the attempt to try to figure it out. How,
How?
how,
Yeah.
how,
How
how,
is it going to happen? Right?
and listen, right? Tune in and listen to that internal guidance that will tell you how, but in a very clear and peaceful and spaciousness way, that grace, right? The grace of God.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. So, did you make any sacrifices on your journey? What did you decide was worth letting go, and what was worth keeping with your thoughts and your feelings of all these changes that were happening?
I mean, I really had to let go of the relationship I had with money and recreate that. At one point, higher self came in and said, ask money how you show up in the relationship.
Oh.
And I said, okay, money, because money is an entity, you can speak to it.
Hmm.
Money, how do I show up in this relationship? And money was like, you don't. And I was like, okay, wow. Money told me, and I don't remember everything, but it was quite a pill to swallow. Money was telling me that you just show up when you want something from me. There's very little appreciation. I had gratitude, but I wasn't valuing money, which is a little bit different of vibration. I would express gratitude regularly,
Right.
but I didn't have value to the first off, the entity of money itself, money, feeling value to money, and then, the different measurements of money, right? The different quantities of money. Money, it seemed very kind of like elusive to me. So I had to let go of this avoidance attachment. I like to speak to our relationship to money in the attachment styles that people teach and learn about with relationships. You can have
Right.
an anxious attachment, you can have an avoidance attachment, you can have both of those, which most people have. You can have a secure attachment, and you can have codependency on
Oh,
money.
yeah.
Money is not the source of our freedom. Money is not the source of our security. Money is not, of course, the source of our fulfillment, of our joy. It is a neutral energy. It will amplify whatever we are already experiencing, right? So if we're feeling that inadequacy, yeah, you can create a lot of wealth. It's never going to make that go away,
Yeah.
right? If you're, seeking some sort of fulfillment, money is not going to fill that. And when we think that money will, we're creating this codependent relationship where we're giving our power away to money rather than seeking internally and then letting money be the amplifier of that which we have already embodied. So I had to really let go of my dysfunctional relationship with money and create what I like to call a loving relationship with money.
That's very interesting. It's the money mindset is quite a minefield, isn't it? Like you said, it's we have these different relationships, just like a normal relationship. We have
Yeah.
these different types of relationship with money. It's like people say, "Oh, I want more money." Well, what's more money? First of all, it means you're telling the universe you don't have any, you don't have anything, and that's probably wrong. If you've got a roof over your head, you've got work to do, you've got this, then you've probably got, enough. But if you say you want more money is what? If you've got $10, more money is $11, right? So it's a conundrum, isn't it? You've got to be really specific when you're asking for things,
Yes.
same as anything else, you know. You've got to be thankful and grateful. Gratitude is a big thing. I'm a big believer in that. A believer in abundance, and you have to look out at nature that I'm surrounded by to understand that I am abundant, right? Every blade of grass, every tree, every bush, everything, right? It's amazing. It's abundance. But we do have this strange relationship with money. Most people I speak to, right?
Yeah, and I find that, even in the spiritual community, and I mean, I would say that perhaps most of humanity doesn't believe that we're abundant, but for those who do, it's still a concept. Okay, we're abundant, right? We're infinite. We are limitless. But how few people actually experience that, right? And for me, that was part of that process. What I find is that's really that connection to that creative life force energy that flows through us, right? The creative life force energy is what is the abundance. The creative life force energy is inexhaustible. And when we don't feel safe, when we don't feel secure, when we have these internal battles and we're not embodied, we aren't having that full access to that creative life force energy that flows through us. And then we're not experiencing abundance. And then we're kind of playing this game of like, okay, I'm abundant, I'm gonna look around and claim that I'm so abundant, but are you experiencing that? Do you feel that abundance in your body, right? Do you feel that flow? Do you feel that aliveness, that joy as you speak to, Beth, right? Like that's that
Yeah.
connection to that ineffable that we all are. But if you're not connected to it, if you don't feel it, then you're not going to really believe it. It's going to be a mental game that you're telling yourself you are, not experiencing it. So, how is that coherent?
Right. Yeah, about the joy. This is most people are just selling their time for money, with jobs that they don't enjoy. And I always say, try and find the joy. Try and find some joy in your life. Doesn't matter what it is. You can move away from that job if you want, but most people are afraid to do that. But find that joy, because that joy, you and I both know, by following the joy, that energy, money is in that energy of joy. Am I right? That's my experience.
Yes, I believe that's really where we're moving. What I call the new era of wealth is this embodied wealth. And
Yeah.
what that means is, first and foremost, we're seeking that safety, security within ourselves, that freedom, right? We're establishing those energies within ourself. And then we are listening to those internal messages that are really coming from our soul. What is your soul really here to experience? That's that joy. That's the aliveness. That's the feeling of being lit, right? That's that passion. And moving forward into this new era, those who follow those trails, those paths, because it takes courage, as we know, that's
Yeah.
where the wealth is going to be coming through. And it's going to transform our reality because the people who are passionate, the people who are heart centered, are going to be cultivating the wealth. And how is that going to circulate the wealth on our planet as more and more of these conscious entrepreneurs, conscious leaders embody the frequency of wealth? It's going to transform humanity.
Well, I think that I couldn't agree more, and I think that that's the way that more people are stepping up into that consciousness, into that higher consciousness, and into the fact that we need to be of service. I need to find my joy. I need to find my purpose. I can't just sit back anymore and just watch the world go by. I need to be part of this growth. And I'm seeing and experiencing more and more of that, which I'm very excited about. So let's talk about being motivated, because when you are on your own, going alone as an entrepreneur, business owner, what strategies or techniques do you use to stay motivated and inspired, especially when we're facing everyday challenges, when life happens, basically?
Yeah, this is really important. This is a great question because there's a couple of nuances here that are really important for entrepreneurs to understand. Again, when we are not connected to that creative life force energy within us, we are going to experience boredom, lack of motivation, lack of inspiration, being stuck. Those are all quote unquote symptoms of not being embodied within that creative life force energy. So when you're embodied within that creative life force energy, you can hardly keep up with yourself. There is so much inspiration, creative life force energy, ideas, content constantly flowing through you. It's magnificent. I mean, we are massive, powerful creators.
Unbelievable, right? This is,
yes.
We don't understand.
Yes.
We've been dumbed down so much. We don't understand how powerful we are, really.
Yes. And it's really, I always like to say, none of that is that you're doing something wrong necessarily. Like if you're experiencing a lack of inspiration, if you're feeling bored or unmotivated in your business, fantastic. Pause, take a step back. Go for a walk in nature. Really give yourself a moment. Where am I not in alignment, right? Where am I getting nudges, hints, hits, messages that I'm not listening to? Where am I saying yes when I really want to just say no, right?
Yeah.
And really asking these questions for yourself. Is it in your clients? Is it in your offers? Is it in your strategy? Is it in the way you have your business modeled? Right. And tune in and really find that misalignment. I have a really great freebie actually that we can link to this because it really helps people walk through this process. And then you can very quickly, what I love about working with people is that, they've already had these nudges. So as soon as I say something, as I tap into their energy,
they're just
like,
ignoring them.
Yeah, I've been hearing that. I'm like, okay, perfect. Then do it, right? But that validation for them is very powerful, right? Because maybe they're questioning it or they're, letting other things take priority. They're not listening like I have done in the past as well. So when you have somebody that's saying, hey, this is actually what you need to do right now. This is going to bring in the revenue. This is going to create that flow again. This is going to get you on stock. Okay. Like they take that action and then, it's so quick. It's so immediate because it's been basically waiting. The universe is twiddling its thumbs like, hello, it's right here for you.
Well, we'll just wait for her to catch up with us, right? We've sent her so many messages. It couldn't be any plainer, right? I've done the same thing. ALARA.
We all do.
I have ignored it. I've taken the wrong path. It's cost me time. It's cost me money.
Yes.
I've done it, right? We can speak from experience. We've had those experiences. You lost money. I've lost money. We've had that. And we're like, oh, gosh, there were so many signs. There were so many things that told me, no, don't do that, right? And I was like, no, I'll do it, right?
I got this,
right? The ego getting in the way, right? And instead, so I went with my head instead of my heart. And of course, it cost me time and money. Yes. And it was an expensive lesson, but that's what, that's a part of life. It's, learning those lessons, right? And going, okay, I'm really listening now. Yeah. So let's, excuse me, let's talk about self-care because self-care is really important, which you touched a little bit on gratitude. I'm sure you use that as part of your routine, but what else do you do? How do you prioritize self-care and your well-being?
I prioritize the heck out of it. There is no wiggle room there. Right. I have kids that are 9 and 11, but when I was really starting my spiritual journey, when I first had my Kundalini awakening, my boys were babies. but it didn't matter. I got up every morning at 3 a.m. I made the time. So every morning, and I still get up oftentimes at 3 a.m. I'm a morning person. I will say that. I love that time of day. I find just a beautiful connection there. But the first thing I do when I get up is I go straight into meditation. I
Hmm.
do breath work. That's my time to really connect in. Then I go and I exercise anywhere from 5 to 6 days a week. I run, I do yoga, I lift weights. And this is all, within listening to my being. So there are some days that my body wants, a softer movement or wants me to go for a walk instead of the run. Um, and so I'm always listening to what is really serving me now. I have my routine, but there's always fluctuation that's available to that. The other thing I do is I intermittent fast 18 hours, 5 days a week, and then I intermittent fast 16 hours the other 2 days of the week. Again, that's very flexible as I'm still on my on my cycle. And so, in different moments of my feminine cycle, I will also shift that as well. And then I'm just taking a lot of time. I need a lot of time to myself. That is something that I know to be true of me. My partner knows that when we're around the kids a lot, and he'll just take them away because he just knows. Oh, I just need that spaciousness, going out and walks with nature. These are all things that come first because I know how I feel when I prioritize all of that, and I know how I feel when I don't. And I'm not gonna let that be in my life.
Yeah. I, am I going to agree with you again? 200%. It's so important that we take that time for ourselves. And I think we're going very wrong. We've been going very wrong for many years, is we prioritize everybody else and everything else before ourselves. And I always say, take control of the day before the day takes control of you. So
Mm,
set
yeah.
those intentions in the morning.
Hmm.
Take the time in the morning. And if you have to get up early before your kids, then do that. I don't
Hmm.
have kids, but I don't start work in the morning. I wake up when I want. I like to wake up. I'll wake up about 8 o'clock. But I've got the morning for myself to do the things that I want to do to prioritize me. And that means maybe
Yeah.
going for a walk in the woods, spending time with my cats, taking a really nice shower, just
Yeah.
meditating, all of those things, just,
Yeah.
doing what I feel is best for me and taking that time in the morning before I start doing everything else. And I think it's really important because if you set yourself up for the day, just that time in the morning, if things happen, life happens, right? But you tend to be more prepared for them when you've set time aside for yourself in exercising, yoga, walking, meditation, all of these, gratitude, all of these things, are so important. They're but just paramount, aren't they?
And you're really starting your day off like that. You're
Right.
starting your day off with this signature of I matter, I care, I love myself, my connection to source matters, my body matters, my heart matters, right? And that's the signature, energetic signature that you're bringing
Right.
into that day. And
Right.
it matters. It has an effect on the rest of your day.
Well, you're teaching yourself, aren't you? To retraining your body, retraining your brain to think this is just normal. This is a habit.
Yeah. Yes.
And when you do that, it becomes a habit. And when you don't do that, something's off. You start feeling that something's off when you don't do that. And I know I've experienced that. I'm sure you have, because we sometimes life happens and you're like, oh, I didn't. Oh,
Yes, we are human.
right,
Yes.
because we're human, right?
Yes.
We're not robots,
Yes.
right? But
No.
when it becomes a habit and you start to put yourself first, and you say, this morning time, this is for me. This time at night, this is for me, whenever that is. And when you start doing that, your body starts to listen and your heart starts to listen and it understands, oh, we want to take care of ourselves. And it's that embodiment
Yes.
that you're talking
And
about.
I find it so much easier to maintain the habit than if you start a habit and then you let yourself slide off. It's so much harder to restart the habit. So I'm really careful about letting myself not show up because it one
Mhm.
day, another day, another day. Oh, now you're slipping off the habit, right?
I already
And
feel
then
depressed after you've gone to day three. Let's keep
yes,
going.
yes. And now, okay, it's a couple weeks. Now you got to start back in. It's so much
Right.
harder.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And you do feel so much better when you start doing it and you start put yourself on the schedule. Everybody else is on the schedule and your
Yes.
work is on the schedule. Put yourself on the schedule. I literally, when I started doing this, I put myself on the schedule. I've got a schedule on my computer, a schedule on my board, and I put myself on that schedule. So I could remind myself, this is your time, Beth, until it became a habit. And I think that's really it's really you are absolutely right. It's important. It's paramount. Let's talk about the lessons. So, what are the most valuable lessons that you've learned about yourself and your goals on this journey?
That security comes from within. And
Nice.
what I mean by that is we need to feel secure, when you look at your bank account. If you have lots of money, feeling secure. If you have no money, feeling secure. If you're in debt, feeling secure.
Right.
Establishing that security, that sense of security in our bodies and in our nervous systems. And that we are truly inexhaustible. And the wound that we have to transmute there is that inadequacy that creates that it's never enough. We got to get more. We got to do more. We have to keep grinding. And when we really spend time with that feeling, I've spent a lot of time with that feeling, it holds so much wisdom, even to the point that when I've been in this inexhaustible, it's laughable, not in a negative way, like truly from the heart, laughable that we could ever believe in inadequacy, right? We could ever believe that we're
I
not
know.
enough when we are such truly infinite beings. But it's here to teach us. So if the audience, anybody in the audience, you feel inadequate, you feel unworthy, you feel not enough, or you feel your business isn't enough, or your partnership isn't enough. These are all reflections where you're being able to be shown, right? Where you get to feel that in your body and recognize that that's fundamentally not true. And as you shift that through that awareness and that self-love, that's where you step more into that true inexhaustible, that true abundance that comes through you from within. And that's that aliveness, that just that radiance of life
Well,
that
I think
lights you up. It's honestly orgasmic, is what
yeah,
it is.
it really is. It really is. Um, when I started this podcast, I didn't, I started it. I thought, so if this is a good idea. I want to give back. How do I give back? How do I do something? And, now I'm on series two. I've got other exclusive episodes. There's about 50 episodes so far, I think, or maybe more. And every single time I interview someone like yourself, Alara, and all the other ladies, how many ladies I've spoken to. Gosh, how inspiring, how empowering. How
Mhm.
much joy does it bring me? And how much joy does it bring you when you get to talk about your story and you get to inspire others? That in itself is embodying joy and aliveness. Do you feel that? Because you've got your own podcast, so let's touch on that your and talk about your podcast a little bit and why you did that.
Yes, I mean, I love learning. I'm a lifelong learner. And to me, with the podcast, it was about my ability to share and bring inspiration, bring activations and content to people, as well as for me, like for me to
Right?
learn, from my guests, and
Yeah.
I love to hear other people's experiences. And even when somebody is speaking, kind of what you and I are doing, you're speaking to joy, I'm speaking to aliveness. It's like the same thing, but it's a little bit different. And just
Yeah.
hearing the way that you speak about it, and it opens up our mind and opens up our perspectives. I love it so much. I really enjoy the interaction with the guests. I love to collaborate with people and just to meet people and hear about their genius. Like one of the things I really love is the geniuses of humanity. We're all geniuses. We all have a unique genius. And to really hear somebody in their genius speaking and they're in that passion and they're activated. It's activating for everybody. It
It's
activates
amazing. It's
me.
the energy that radiates. It's crazy, right? When you just meet
Yes.
somebody and they're talking, they're in that joy moment, that aliveness moment that you call it,
Yes.
right? It's
Yes.
incredible, right?
Yes.
But I do think there's a problem in the world right now. It's a challenge. We're trying to we're living in joy, you and and I know lots of many other women that are living in joy. But there are so many women that are in that that stuck phase, where they're struggling to find that joy, and there, there is not just not good enoughness.
Yeah.
It's like not good enoughness, right? Do you meet many women in that situation? I'm sure plenty.
I work with a lot of women who are very successful and still have that feeling.
Right.
And that's the beauty of the work that I do and the joy that I get to bring to these people's lives is, again, because, the reason oftentimes people are so successful is because of that inward feeling of unworthiness,
Right.
that inadequacy, that I'm not enough. Let me acquire success and wealth. That will fulfill me. And then, oh, that
Right.
didn't work. Let me get some more. Oh, that didn't work. Let me get some more. Right. And so it is something that I believe very strongly. The inadequacy, the not enoughness, it is the shadow of our creative life force energy. So we all have it to some degree.
Yeah.
And it's it's about the willingness to see it and realize it's not fundamentally true. So how do I want to go about shifting this and connecting to that internal aliveness so that I can create that fulfillment?
Right. Because people always equate success with money, and it's not necessarily that's not true, But those women, those successful women, have done that. They've gone after the power and the money because that will fill a void somewhere, right? Not only women, I know men that do that as
Oh,
well, right?
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. But so let's talk about that. So personally, how do you define success in the context of your business dreams and goals?
It's 100% following those inner whispers, those dialogues, truly being devoted. Devotion is a very strong thing for me. I love it. I love the feeling of devotion, and I'm devoted to the messages, the teachings, the challenges that my higher self brings through for me. So success to me is about showing up for those messages, listening, right? Showing up for those challenges, giving those challenges my all from the reflection of, as we said earlier, this is happening for me. This is happening for me. And staying always in that aliveness, which took me years to cultivate that, to really understand that, and to understand how to stay in that flow. And so that is that success. And to me, that success is every single day, right? That success is in the moment of really honoring and being devoted to that internal path and connection to my soul and life's work.
Yeah, and I think it's not only showing up for other people, it's also showing up for ourselves. This is what we talked about, right? We're just missing this. Lots of when women are missing this, they're missing that embodiment and that show up for yourself first. Empower
Yeah.
yourself first, put yourself first, and then you can has a knock-on effect with everybody else that comes into contact with you, right? You can show up for the world, more or less. Not really.
Absolutely. And we're not separate, So
Yeah.
if you're not showing up for yourself, you're not really showing up,
Yeah.
period. period.
Agree. I agree. So what are some of the unexpected benefits or rewards that you've gained from this this journey of embodying wealth and health?
I mean, the aliveness, when I started on this journey, I didn't even know what aliveness was. I mean,
Alive,
the
you have to just pinch your skin to check, right?
Yeah, and I was very shut down. I was numb. Aliveness would have, if I would have heard this phrase 15 years ago, I would have been like, okay, is that when you're like jumping out of a plane? I had this beautiful experience I want to share about. We were walking down the street the other day, and this guy was sitting with his really old typewriter, and he had a sign that said poems. And we kind of looked at it and we kind of kept walking. And this woman came to us, was walking past us, and she's like, "Oh, you should get him to write a poem. He's brilliant." And so we went to dinner, and then on our way back, we stopped. And he was like, "Okay, what do you want to write a poem about?" And my partner said love. And I was like, oh, that's cliche. I want to write something different. And I said aliveness. And he goes, oh, okay. And he was really like this genius. He had like this rough hair, he reeked poetic genius. So I was really excited about this. And he goes, oh, okay, aliveness. Yeah. So like, when was the last time you felt alive? He's like, the last time I felt alive was when I jumped out of a plane. And my ego in that moment was like, oh, come up with something like that. And I said, no, what does my heart say? And my heart said, oh, you experienced aliveness yesterday morning. And I said, oh, it was yesterday morning. And I had this very much out of the box story that I was going to tell him that I was like, I don't know if this guy's going to get what I'm about to say. But I went through this experience where all of a sudden I was deep in the suffering of humanity and the loss of innocence. And I was crying and I was in it and I was breathing and I was just like, wow, to be human and all these sensations and the suffering that is the grace of God. And I tell you, I felt alive. And I told him that, and he, mouth agape was like, oh, wow. And he wrote the most amazing poem. Like he got it.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And so even through my journey of aliveness, I wouldn't have said in the early years of it, aliveness is feeling the suffering of the world, right? So I have learned so much
I'm
about what
sure.
it means to be human and the beauty, the absolute honor to live in a human body as an infinite ethereal being.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. Well, I'm going to ask you two questions that I ask all my guests. And the first one is, if you could go back in time, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Listen. She did a good job, but I'm going to remind her, listen.
Very good. Yes. Listen, always listen. And we're talking to your intuition now. We're not talking about listen to the listen to other humans. We're talking about listen to your intuition. Yeah. And the second question is, what do you hope your story will inspire in other women that are looking to live a purposeful and joyful life? What would you say to them?
I would love for them to first and foremost contemplate their relationship with money and invite themselves into a loving relationship with money and also recognize any of that inadequacy, that unworthiness, that not enough. And that is the portal to that true inexhaustible wealth, that true sense of abundance and aliveness within.
Wow, lovely way to end. So a million thanks for
Mm.
Alara for joining me today. Thanks to our audience for hanging out with us. We hope you find it inspiring and empowering. And you'll find all you need to know about both of us in the details below. So until next time, this is Beth and Alara signing off.